I was an overachiever, always trying to get my mom to stop. And what I would tell her is, Mama, please just love your baby more than that. And so I spent, most of my life doing all these different things, beauty pageants, modeling, anything I could think of to try to get her to love me more than, what she was doing, what she was using.
Mm.
And she finally got off drugs, but she got onto opiates because she got injured and had to have surgery. And
Mm.
so, she went from street drugs to prescription drugs. You know, doctor was, and then I ended up seeing the same doctor she did, and I had some pretty bad, unexplainable internal issues going on that were causing me a lot of pain and a lot of agony. And I could not figure out what it was. And so my doctor just handed me a bottle of hydrocodone, 120 hydrocodone, 90 Xanax, 90 Somas. Said, here, this will help you get by. I don't know what it is. And
Wow.
yeah, and I I was 14 when he did that. And I stayed on those till I was 22. And I cut myself off cold turkey and had a heart attack at 22. I spent
Seriously?
6 weeks in the cardiac unit at Hughley
Wow.
Hospital. And that's because I ended up losing my firstborn son uh, to the state because of prescription pills.
Wow.
Um, I wasn't abusing them. I wasn't using them wrong. The judge just said, "We don't want you taking these. Since you are taking these, you're a bad mom." And gave him over to his father, who wasn't even on the birth certificate because when I told him I was pregnant, he took off.
He took
Blocked
off.
me. Yeah, he blocked me on Facebook. Changed his phone number. Never answered a phone call,
So
but
even to this day, he's not involved with his life or
oh no,
anything.
to this day he has my son. The state gave my son to him. He was a baseball player, and it was for TCU, and they were in the College World Series, and it was draft time. And so he decided out of nowhere to take me to court, and the court said, "Okay, well, you're taking all these pills, and that's bad. We're giving like the first day I went to court, without him ever even being on the birth certificate or anything, they gave my son to him, and it's been, gosh, it's been 10 years, and like when I met Chris, because that's why I cut myself off cold turkey. And I had been out of the hospital 3 days, and my brother called me that lives in California and said, Texas is going to kill you. You need to come out here. And I was on a plane 10 hours later, and that's how I met Chris, was when I was real, real fresh, with this trauma of losing my son. And shortly after, I ended up losing my brother. He got killed by a woman who was, I don't know if she was drunk or but he was walking on the side of the road and she struck him. And
Wow.
then within 2 months, I had to come back to Texas because both my grandparents, they got the same type of lung cancer at the same time, and they raised me. They were my world. So to basically aid them in dying and watch your everything crumble and
Hmm.
like the strongest people turn into mush. It was hard, and I didn't really have anybody that I could turn to or talk to, and I ended up at my stepdad's house that he was renting, and there was some pretty sketchy people there. And one of them called me into their room, and they were like, I know you're going through a hard time, and they used methamphetamines, and they were like, I know you don't do this, but just in case, here's one for you. And there was a syringe full, and I was just like, at that point, you know, I'm thinking, what do I have to lose? So, um, I started using and thinking that these people were looking after me and that they cared about me because they were giving me these drugs to make me feel better. And
What drug was that?
at the time, it was methamphetamine.
Hmm.
And then that was short lived just because I didn't really like it. And I ended up reconnecting with someone who my mom used to hang out with. They lived with us. They were like a nanny because my mom was always messed up, so they would take care of us. But they used GHB, and I had nowhere else to stay at the time, and so I started staying with them, and I started using GHB, the one thing I swore I would never, ever, ever touch, and just I I've seen drug addiction from both sides. I've been up on the high horse looking down at the addict wondering why can't you just stop, you know?
Hmm.
Why has it got
Right.
to be so hard? And I've been, deep in that hole trying to crawl my way out, seeing how hard it is to just stop. Once you start and that motion that motion goes, you just you don't realize how far you are into that hole until you break your ankle.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it was hard, and I ended up catching a charge, going to jail, and I am not the type of person to do well in jail.
All
And
right.
I have a felony on my record. It ruined my life before I had a chance to have a life. I had a lot of plans that I don't even have a chance of achieving because I had that big F on my name now
Mm.
over something that could have easily been avoided. And so
Yeah.
that's why now that I'm clean and can see clearly now, and again, I used to do a lot of humanitarian work. And so now my focus is to find people like me that feel like they're defined by the wrong things that they did and
Hmm.
give them an opportunity to take their identity back.
Yeah. Amazing. That's great. Yeah. You mentioned genetics. Yeah, Chris. In your family history, where do you see addiction or mood disorders or?
It definitely runs in our family, and I agree with Danielle in the sense that it is genetic. Because my father, he had a struggle with alcohol. He's been sober for almost 20 years, maybe longer. Um,
Hmm.
my mother, as I mentioned, she was like a guinea pig for the OxyContin trials in the 90s before
Hmm.
they knew how addictive they were. So, her doctor, this kind of, you describe him as a pill pusher for sure,
Hmm.
was, kept just upping her dose, upping her dose, upping her dose. And she didn't like the way the pills made her feel. And so she, at one point, flushed him down the toilet, not realizing that it was going to send her into this horrifying withdrawal.
Yeah.
And so, of course, she goes back to the doctor and says, "Why do I feel like this?" And the doctor says, "Oh, well, those medications, they can create a physical and they said
Yeah.
sometimes mental. Yeah, sometimes I think like over 50% of people who try opiates or
Hmm.
try get addicted to them." Um, but that mental addiction is so strong. So they obviously they're misleading my mom on
Yeah.
what these drugs were doing to her, and then she got put on fentanyl. They upgraded her from OxyContin to fentanyl.
Hmm. The patch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the patch, and then obviously my brother and sister. I don't want to share too much of what they
Yeah,
went
but I,
through,
kn-
but
I know, but your
they
sister
can
with.
speak for themselves. But yeah, they both had their issues, but both of them. I just want to congratulate both of them, especially my sister who was. I mean, I don't think she minds it.
No, no, no.
She was on 165 milligrams of methadone, which you know most doctors were telling my father, a 365-pound man should not be on that much. She weighs soaking wet, covered in like, maybe 90 pounds, if
Well,
not.
she also had a pretty severe eating disorder too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bulimia, anorexia, which helped, I think, fuel the numbness that she got and the escapism that she got from the opiates. And so because she started with opiates, and she started on Vicodin, and
Right.
and and then eventually went to methadone, and just kept going up and up, searching for that high that was never going to be there, because
Hmm.
methadone is not like heroin or Oxycontin. Doesn't function that way in terms of like giving you that high, but it does zombify you, especially when you're on such a high
Oh
dose.
yeah, for sure.
Constantly tired, constantly sleepy. And she broke out of that shell. My parents, kind of expected her to, just be on methadone for the rest of her life. But she was able to get completely off of it. Went down all the way off 165 milligrams, then went on Suboxone, then got off that.
Wow.
And so, while my sister and I, butt heads a lot, I really do look at her and see someone who is so strong, because the mental chaos that, I mean, because methadone, I've read a lot about this. It's the addiction. The addiction is so bad because it gets into your bone marrow, and so the withdrawal process is much more protracted. It's longer. It's
Hmm.
more. It's not quite as like intense as the 7-day withdrawal you get from heroin.
Right. Yeah.
But it's drawn out, and it's just like this.
Well,
She even said,
Suboxone's a better drug for
"Oh my gosh!" I mean, compared
yeah.
to they call methadone liquid handcuffs, and and I 100% agree, because I know plenty of people who have and then been able to get off Suboxone, or get onto such a low dose of Suboxone that it's like they're taking it, but it's not affecting them in any way. I
Hmm.
think it's maybe even more kind of like a mind over matter type of
Yeah.
thing. Like, I've taken the Suboxone, so I know I can't get high, even if I want, even if I decide, if not that the person is thinking about relapsing, but just that,
Hmm.
I guess, that kind of safety net if they
Right.
do, get back into that behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, so yeah, my family has definitely experienced. Long story short, my family has definitely experienced a lot of addiction,
Yeah.
but they've
Well,
all.
I've known your sister
All of
for.
them. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not.
my sister,
I've
20
known your sister
years.
since she was like I think I've like 25 to 30 years ago. I first met your sister, and back when she was in the throes of it all, and she's made amazing progress.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
yeah,
remarkable, and
she's really
I'm
done
so
well.
proud
But
of her.
sorry to interrupt you. What were you saying?
Oh, oh no, I was just saying, yeah, it's just remarkable, and I'm so proud of her as her brother.
I am too.
Yeah, and but yeah, addiction, disease, definitely genetic, and I would say definitely affected. And I just wanted to touch on something Danielle said. She talked about how she saw what her mom was doing, and she promised she would never be, never become that.
Hmm.
I am very similarly saw what my sister's addiction and my brother's addiction did to them and did to my parents, and I said, I will never do that. I will never become like that. Sure enough,
Yeah.
it's really ironic, I guess, and the fact that I became everything I hated, everything I despised, and
Hmm.
it's and to come out of that and then and look back on it,
Yeah.
it's crazy how you can be so determined not to do something, and just
Hmm.
the way life twists and turns,
Yeah.
run you right into a brick wall.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think I think I think we talked about this before before we started. Is that the stigma? I think people, when it comes to addiction, it's just the stigma people, the shame people feel because people make them feel like, oh, you're such a loser. How come or why can't you just stop? What's wrong with you? Why can't you just stop? And And I think and that just doesn't help the situation at all. When someone already is not doing well and then they get shamed,
Yeah,
and
like
then
kick them while they're down type of thing.
yeah, and then what do people do now to deal with that? Well, they use more because, like, I'm, well, maybe they're right. Maybe that's, and not, but yeah, I think it's, I think this is why there's so many people out there struggling. I think because they don't get the help they need because they get ignored, they get shunned, they get the family throws them out and doesn't looks the other way, and that's it. And I mean, I have patients who are, a couple people who've been homeless because the family just like, you're out of here, goodbye. You know. So, Chris, you were saying that just you have a pod. You tell me about your podcast. You have a podcast you're doing.
Yeah, so we're doing a joint podcast. It's called No Assumptions, Escaping the Shame and Sticking It to the Stigma. Danielle came up with the majority of that name. I think I had like a couple of words that
It's
were
great.
mine, but most of it is hers. And it's kind of just a broad kind of mind, body, and soul kind of, in terms of like what we're trying to do, because we don't want it to like specifically focus on just addicts or just people with, who are depressed or whatever, but
Hmm.
all kinds of all kinds of mental health, or if you're struggling with your body image or whatever, and the labels that people put on, like for example, Danielle, a bad parent because
Hmm.
she was on pills or whatever, or the
Felon,
or yeah, or
convict.
felon, convict, yeah, whatever. And
Right.
all the things
You
that she's been denied because of that fact. It's I'm
you
sorry,
do,
I
you do
lost
the
my train.
podcast together.
Yeah, so we're going to be launching the No Assumption podcast.
So it's called No
With two
Assumption. Is
with
that
two microphones. We're gonna have two microphones.
Probably
But
one more. We'll have a guest.
yeah, and yeah, we're just gonna try to get guests on that are either in the midst of their struggle and just feel like they need to be heard, or and of course the success stories, like kind of like what you're doing, talking to the people who have gone through the ringer, been through the ringer, and
right?
come out the other side better, healthier, and why they can share. So our first video, we're kind of going to explain why
Hmm.
we're kind of why we have the not authority but ability to speak on these nuanced, difficult, very sensitive topics,
Hmm.
because we've been through, and on both sides of it, from someone who came from a very affluent background, someone who came from a very poor background. That addiction and all these different things, they do not discriminate. It doesn't matter whether you're poor, rich, black, white, transgender, whatever, cisgender. It's non-discriminatory, and it will destroy you. And I think that us having gone through all the things that we've gone through collectively, and to be sitting here and able to share our stories with the world, we hope that
Together.
yeah, and we hope
Awesome.
that we can change the kind of the have a paradigm shift in how people look at addiction, because yes, I 100% believe addiction is a disease, and I think that's starting to become accepted, but a lot of people still say, well, it's a self-inflicted disease. And while
Right.
that may be often true, often it's not true. Often it's a doctor-inflicted disease, a doctor telling you, hey, this is good for you, hey, this is good for you, hey, this
Right.
is good for you. But like, for me, it was, I did it because I liked the feeling,
Right.
and it helped me escape, and all of my fears and my anxieties and my worries. And so, yeah, we just want to, and again, but you get a very broad focus, just do our best to, bring people on who want to, share their
Hmm.
successes or share their frustrations, and see what we can do. And if we can even, genuinely like change one person's life,
Hmm.
get one person off drugs, that's what the goal is.
Well, you need to have me. I'd love to come on as a guest if you want to have me, and I could. talking to you guys about. I could talk from a medical, professional viewpoint about how I deal with people with addiction and how to treat it, and in a like I'm doing with you, Chris, like in a preventative way, and so yeah, but it's going to be on Spotify, or where can people find it?
So
iTunes.
we're gonna be on like YouTube, Rumble, and then like we're gonna Facebook, Twitter. Like we're gonna be live streaming to all simulcasting to all these different platforms. But yeah, we want to be in as many places as possible to just try to amplify the message of hey, whatever you've done, whatever you've been labeled in the past, like this.
Take your identity. This is your chance to take your identity back.
And this world is filled, like everyone on this planet deserves a second chance.
Right.
And
exactly.
And that's what God believed. That's why He sent His only Son down to die for us so that we could be forgiven. And so I think we need to remember that, and always just remember that these are the most fragile people in society. Addicts, people with mental health issues are some of the most fragile individuals, alive.
Yeah, and the name of
especially when they're in that state of addiction or mental. Yeah.
So the name again. What's the name of it again?
No Assumptions.
But thank you. I really thank you guys for coming on, and I really appreciate it. I think it was really, I think it gives people a lot of hope to realize that things can get so bad, but still survive it and thrive, not just survive but thrive. So we really thank both of you for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Anytime, Dr. Corona. And,
all right.
We look forward to having you on as soon as we get our podcast running.
I look forward to it. Thanks, guys. Thanks. All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Danielle.
Take care.
All right. Bye. Well, hello, welcome to the show. I really appreciate your coming on.
Oh, you're welcome, Dr. Corona. Thanks so much.
So if you could share with us, I know I've seen you only for 2 visits, but if you could share what brought you to see me, and let me know what transpired since then.
Well, number one reason why I came to your office was because I'm very hesitant on taking medications. Like I'm just very, very aware of side effects and all that kind of stuff. So I decided basically that I didn't want to take it for a long period of time. I didn't want to take Adderall because I just, my doctor was just, hey, here it is, and he would just prescribe something, and I was like, and I just wasn't feeling like he was doing his due diligence on finding out what was actually going on with me and what was the actual dose or anything. So I was referred to by another doctor, and then basically when I came to your office, your approach was completely different. We basically went about in figuring out what was the right dose, in combination with the other medication that was Pristique.
Right.
And that really, at first I was very hesitant on trying it, but it really did make a huge difference. And I took the doses from 5 milligrams to I did a cycle of first week 5 and up to what was the actual doses that I needed. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, it was higher than what I was actually being prescribed by the other doctor. And with the other medication that was being prescribed, the Pristique, I wasn't getting that crash at the end of the day, or wasn't feeling kind of lethargic. And it really did balance the Adderall out. So I'm glad I actually had a chance to meet you and actually find the right medication for me versus just kind of prescribing something and sending me on my way. That was a big deal for me.
And it was also, I think, didn't help also with muscle tension and your didn't help you feel. What were the physical symptoms you were getting before the Pristique?
So the physical symptoms was just a lot of muscle tension, tightness, especially through upper back and neck. the minute I started noticing like the physical part, that it was really, and also like for anxiety, it helped a lot for anxiety. It helped a lot for kind of like that muscle tension that I was getting, and it just kind of really balanced, like not just like, you know, the brain chemistry, but it also did balance out like the physical part of it, which was kind of like that tension that you get from, I guess, overly stressed and having too much to do, and another thing that actually it did also do was I didn't get so crazy OCD about getting a task finished and not being able to move on. I definitely would get my task, whatever I needed to do. I've been able to do that so far. Just finish it, move on, or if I need to come back to it, I can just leave it and come back to it. But before, it was that more of that focus of like, just I need to finish, and I wouldn't get anything else done until I would actually, you know, finish the task at hand.
A little bit obsessive compulsive in a sense. And
yeah, so basically that was one of the things that for me it did help with a lot of the muscle tension. It helped with the OCD. It helped with basically the ADD, which has always been an issue for me. But I definitely was very hesitant on going back on Adderall because I was prescribed before Adderall, but then the Prestige actually did help a ton to balance out one with the other. And towards the end of the day, I don't have so the Prestige doesn't give me any side effects other than at the end of the night. I just around 10 o'clock I'm like, okay, I'm ready for bed, and I sleep, and I sleep well. I'm not tossing and turning. I get a good night's rest, basically.
Yeah, and they do. They really balance each other out, and they kind of prevent, like you said, the crash, because Adderall works and it works for you, but without a kind of a balance, kind of a stopgap, it's going to crash, and then you're going to have that up and down kind of feeling. And then a lot of people, like when it comes to muscle tension, this is what really got me doing this. Like 30 years ago. And then, 31 years ago, in 1993 is when Effexor XR came out after SSRIs had come out. And then Effexor XR is the same company that now makes Prestige. And I started to see back in the early 90s even that I was giving this medication to people, and all of a sudden their pain was going away. And I was like, wait a minute. And people would write it off like, well, maybe it's the way I'm sitting at my desk, I'm on the computer, or I'm a hairdresser, I'm cutting hair, and so of course so a lot of people would write that off as just sitting, and everyone knows like that area of the body is where most massage therapists spend their time, because that's where we build up a lot of our tension there in those muscles. But I started to see this like 30 years ago, that when you balance norepinephrine and not just serotonin, that these miraculous things were happening. And now Prestige is my current favorite medication that I've been prescribing for, maybe 20 years now. It's the best one out there, in my opinion, overall, not for everybody, but overall. And most doctors don't even know about it, or they know about it, but they have no idea why and when to prescribe it. Most doctors are going to put you on an SSRI, like a Lexapro or Zoloft, and that can help a little bit, but it'll make you tired, make you feel flat. And so that's why that simple difference between an SSRI and an SNRI, like Prestige, is that it's a huge difference when it comes to results. And then being able to treat the ADD, and by the way, you should never feel bad about treating your ADD, or you're not addicted to Adderall. Okay, you're treating a medical condition, and that's really important to understand, that now that you're taking two medications together, that there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. You never need to feel guilty about it or shame about treating something that's medical that you can't help.
Yeah, it has made a big difference, and I honestly, I'm glad that I was referred to you because I was very hesitant on, like I said, on going back on Adderall, and I just didn't want to be like, again, oh, here you go, here's
Right.
your prescribed dose, and then they just send you on your way. But I'm not that person that likes to actually even take medication at all, but I know that this actually has helped me.
Yeah.
And it's benefited me in actually more than one or two ways. Also, another thing that actually did help with was irritability.
Mm-hmm.
It really did help with irritability. I just don't have that irritability as I don't like spark so quick. I just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah.
Right.
It just really helped in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and you're the psychologist who referred you to me. I've been working with her for, I don't know, well over 20 years. I don't even remember how many years I've been working with her, but she's fantastic. And her husband, work near each other. They're both doctors of different types of doctors. But yeah, I've sent a lot of people to her, and she's sent a lot of people to me. And because I think, when you recognize, a good psychologist, she's worth her weight in gold,
Yeah, definitely. It does. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So good. Well, yeah, I think it was a pleasure working with you. I really appreciate your coming on the show.
Oh, no, thank you for having me.
I'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Take care, Dr. Gordon.
All right. I hope you enjoyed the show today. If you have issues with mental health, or if you know someone who needs help, I'm available. If you want to contact my office, my website is drpaulcoronamd.com. That's DR for doctor. And you can also learn more about me on my website. My phone number, if you want to contact my office directly, is 949-481-0118. If you want to learn more about my methods and what I do, my latest book, I recommend The Corona Protocol, a scientifically proven medical solution to stop addiction, bullying, homelessness,